Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit, and welcome to another weekend book review.
Sounds good.
Today we're diving deep, really deep, into the Bose Deception Declassified. And joining me to help unpack this is Nikita.
Hey, everyone.
Now, Nikita, I know you and I both, we've talked about this before, but we both kind of have an interest in Subhas Chandra Bose, right?
Absolutely.
And this book really claims to kind of uncover compelling new evidence surrounding his disappearance.
It does, yeah. I mean, this isn't just another historical analysis.
Right.
The authors, Anuj Dhar and Chandrachur Ghose, they're co-founders of Mission Netaji.
Oh, wow.
Which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncovering the truth about Bose's fate. And they've spent years meticulously researching declassified documents.
Wow.
Parliamentary records, first-hand accounts, and they present a pretty compelling case, I think.
So, right from the beginning, the book kind of throws a curveball, right? It reveals that even after India gained independence, the government continued to share intelligence on Bose's family with British intelligence.
Years, yeah.
For years.
Yeah.
And so, why would the newly independent Indian government do that?
Exactly.
It immediately makes you kind of wonder if there's something they're trying to hide.
Right. And that's the core of the book's premise,
Okay.
is that official narrative, the one we've all heard about,
Right.
Bose dying in a plane crash in Taiwan in 1945, might be an elaborate cover-up.
Wow.
And so the authors use these newly uncovered documents, along with, historical analysis, to challenge that narrative and offer a very different perspective.
So it's chapters 1 and 2 really lay the groundwork, showing how they piece together this alternate narrative. And really challenging, kind of like the accepted story point by point.
Yeah, yeah.
And then in chapter 3, they kind of transport us back to the immediate aftermath of that alleged plane crash.
Yeah, yeah. And what's really striking about this chapter is the sheer confusion surrounding the event.
Okay.
There are conflicting accounts of Bose's whereabouts in the days leading up to the crash, with some reports indicating he was actually heading toward Manchuria.
Okay, so hold on. Manchuria, why on earth would he go there?
Yeah, right. That's the million-dollar question. You have to remember, this is 1945,
Right.
the tail end of World War II. The Soviet Union was emerging as a major global power.
Right.
And Bose, with his staunch anti-colonial stance, might have seen them as a potential ally in India's struggle for independence.
Okay.
So he might have been thinking strategically, trying to play the emerging Cold War dynamics to India's advantage.
So the authors are suggesting that Bose was potentially years ahead of everyone, already kind of maneuvering within the framework of this global power shift that hadn't even fully materialized yet.
Precisely. And there's another fascinating detail. The U.S. Army files on Bose's alleged death are surprisingly thin. Yeah. This, despite the fact that British intelligence officers claimed they had conclusive evidence.
Really?
Yeah. So we're already starting to see these gaps and inconsistencies in the official narrative.
So there's this kind of fog of uncertainty around the event itself. But what about those who were with Bose, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they confirm the plane crash story?
Well, some did, but even their accounts raise questions. Take Habibur Rahman, for instance.
Okay.
The man who accompanied Bose on that final flight.
Right.
His testimony was initially considered the most credible evidence that Bose had died in the crash. But here's the kicker. Even Sardar Patel, India's first home minister, a key figure in the independence movement, had reservations about Rahman's account.
Wow. So if even someone like Sardar Patel doubted the official story, it really makes you wonder what else might be hidden beneath the surface.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. As we delve deeper into the book, we'll explore a series of official inquiries. Each one, I think, more convoluted and controversial than the last, revealing a web of secrecy and potential deception.
It sounds like we're just getting started.
We are.
This book has already opened like a Pandora's box of questions.
It really has.
Where do we even begin to unpack all of this?
Well, that's where the real intrigue begins.
Okay.
The authors don't shy away from challenging the official narrative.
Right.
And they lay out their evidence in a way that's both meticulous and engaging.
Okay.
It's a real page-turner, and we're only just scratching the surface.
We'll definitely need to take a closer look at those inquiries.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit.
Yes.
When we left off, we were kind of about to unpack this series of official inquiries
Right.
launched by the Indian government to kind of investigate Bose's disappearance, and each one seems to add another layer of mystery to this already perplexing story.
It really does. It's like peeling an onion, only to find another onion underneath.
Yeah, like what's going on here?
Yeah. So, Chapter 4 takes us back to the 1950s and that first major inquiry led by S.A. Ayer.
Oh, okay.
Now remember, he was the same figure involved in that INA treasure controversy.
That's right, the INA treasure mystery.
Yeah.
Like, for those who aren't familiar,
Yeah.
this refers to, like, a large sum of money
Right.
and valuables that were, like, allegedly collected by Subhas Chandra Bose
Yeah.
and the Indian National Army to fund their fight against British rule. And then after the war, these treasures seemingly vanished.
Yeah.
And Ayer was accused of mishandling or even misappropriating those funds.
Right. Despite that cloud hanging over him, he was tasked with investigating Bose's disappearance. He went to Japan, met with survivors of the alleged plane crash, former Japanese military officers, even the elusive Colonel Tada Minoru.
Okay, pause right there. Who is Colonel Tada? And why is he so important in this whole saga?
Well, Colonel Tada was a high-ranking officer in the Japanese army during the war, and he was stationed at the headquarters of Field Marshal Count Terauchi, who commanded all Japanese forces in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
And he worked closely with Bose and the INA, coordinating their movements, providing logistical support, and the British believed that Tada possessed crucial information about Bose's final days.
So Ayer finally gets a chance to kind of like speak with this key figure.
Yeah.
Who was so close to Bose. Did Colonel Tada like shed any light on what happened?
Well, that's where the plot thickens.
Okay.
Ayer completed his report, concluded that Bose died in the plane crash, and Nehru, India's first prime minister, presented these findings to the public.
Okay.
However, and this is crucial, significant portions of Ayer's original report, particularly those mentioning Bose's supposed plan to escape to Manchuria, were conveniently removed from the version released to the public.
So wait, so the Indian government basically censored parts of the report that contradicted their preferred narrative.
It certainly seems that way. And this pattern of selective disclosure and information control kind of continues.
Okay.
Take the Shahnawaz Khan Committee report, another inquiry that upheld the plane crash theory, but raised serious questions about the reliability of its evidence.
Wow.
Or the story of Justice Radha Binod Pal, the Indian judge at the Tokyo trials who was famous for his dissenting judgment.
For those who don't know, the Tokyo trials were a series of trials held after World War II to prosecute Japanese leaders for war crimes.
Exactly.
And Justice Pal was the only judge who kind of argued against the entire concept of these trials, essentially calling them victor's justice.
Precisely. He was a highly respected figure, especially among the Japanese, and many believed he would be the perfect candidate to lead an impartial inquiry into Bose's death.
Right.
However, the Indian government resisted appointing him, possibly fearing his critical stance towards the Allied powers might lead to an outcome they wouldn't like.
So even back then, there were concerns about political interference in these investigations.
Yes, and it didn't stop there. Even within these inquiries, there were voices of dissent.
Wow.
Take Suresh Bose, for example, Subhas Chandra Bose's own brother.
Right.
He served on the Shahnawaz Khan Committee, but wrote a dissenting note rejecting the plane crash theory based on his analysis of the available evidence.
So even members of Bose's own family didn't buy the official story. It's like everyone was kind of being pressured to toe the line, even when the evidence didn't add up.
Exactly. And as time went on, public skepticism grew. Chapters 5 and 6 explore the emergence of alternative theories, like the fascinating, albeit somewhat outlandish, Gumnami Baba story.
Okay, let's break this down.
Yeah.
What exactly is the Gumnami Baba theory?
So this theory gained traction in the 1970s and 80s.
Okay.
And it claims that Bose might have actually survived the crash and lived incognito as a sadhu, a Hindu holy man, in India, going by the name Gumnami Baba.
So people believe he might have faked his own death and become a holy man.
Right.
That's a pretty wild twist.
It is, but there was some circumstantial evidence fueling this theory.
Like what?
Witness accounts, personal belongings found with Gumnami Baba that resembled items Bose was known to possess, and even handwriting samples that some experts claimed were a match.
Did any of the official inquiries actually investigate this Gumnami Baba angle?
Not seriously, and that's what's so frustrating. B.N. Mayukh, the former director of the Intelligence Bureau, even admitted that they didn't properly investigate the theory, claiming it wasn't a national security issue.
Right.
Many believe there's more to it than that.
It sounds like they were trying to sweep anything that challenged the official narrative under the rug.
It's certainly a possibility. The authors also highlight the work of Samar Guha, a parliamentarian who dedicated decades to uncovering the truth about Bose's disappearance.
Wow.
He gathered evidence, raised the issue in Parliament, pushed for new inquiries, but his efforts were largely ignored or dismissed by the government.
It's almost as if there was a concerted effort to maintain this kind of like wall of secrecy around the entire affair.
That's the impression one gets. And that brings us to Chapter 7 and the Justice G.D. Khosla Commission, which was appointed in 1970 in response to mounting pressure from MPs and the public.
So did the Khosla Commission finally uncover the truth after all these years of speculation and half-hearted investigations?
Unfortunately, no. Khosla's report ultimately upheld the plane crash theory, but even he couldn't ignore the numerous inconsistencies and gaps in the official narrative.
Really?
His report highlighted discrepancies in witness testimonies, questioned the reliability of key evidence, and even cast doubt on the motives of some individuals involved in the earlier investigations.
So even the government's own commission inadvertently ended up poking holes in the story they were supposed to be supporting.
Exactly. And that brings us to the most recent inquiry, the Justice Manoj Mukherjee Commission, and the explosive findings that truly shook the foundations of the official narrative.
Hold that thought. This is a perfect place to pause. Let our listeners kind of absorb everything we've uncovered so far. We'll dive into the Mukherjee Commission and the bombshells it dropped when we return for the final part of our deep dive into the Bose Deception Declassified. Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit. We're in the final stretch of our deep dive into the Bose Deception Declassified. And things are about to get really, really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
We've journeyed through decades of these official inquiries, each, riddled with inconsistencies and raising more questions than answers.
Yeah.
But as we enter the late 1990s, a new investigation emerges.
Right.
One that would challenge the very foundation, like the core of the official narrative.
That's right. Chapter 8 throws us headfirst into the Justice Manoj Mukherjee Commission, the most recent and perhaps the most controversial inquiry into the Bose disappearance. This commission didn't hold back. They meticulously analyzed historical records, witness testimonies, and the glaring lack of credible evidence supporting the long-held plane crash theory. And their conclusion was a bombshell. Subhas Chandra Bose did not die in that plane crash.
Whoa, hold on. So after all these years, all these inquiries, this commission comes out and flat out refutes the official story.
They do.
What evidence did they base this on?
Well, the Mukherjee Commission's report is meticulously detailed. They highlight discrepancies in previous inquiries.
Okay.
They expose questionable witness testimonies, and they reveal this pattern of deliberate obfuscation by authorities.
Wow.
They raise, serious doubts about the authenticity of the evidence presented to support the plane crash theory, including the lack of any, verifiable remains.
But if there was no plane crash, what happened to Bose? Where did he go?
Right. That's the question that has haunted, researchers and historians for decades.
Yeah. Chapter 10 explores one of the most intriguing possibilities, the Russian connection.
Okay.
Remember those early reports suggesting Bose might have been heading towards Manchuria?
Yeah.
With the intention of reaching Soviet Russia?
Yeah, but those were always dismissed as, unfounded rumors, right?
The Mukherjee Commission and the authors of this book took those leads very seriously.
Okay.
They dug deep. They presented, compelling evidence, including recently declassified documents, eyewitness accounts, and historical analysis, all pointing to the possibility that Bose might have sought refuge in the Soviet Union.
So they're suggesting that after supposedly dying in Taiwan, Bose might have actually made his way to Russia?
Right.
Is there any concrete proof of this?
Well, one of the most significant pieces of evidence is a letter written by Bose himself in 1944 to Yakov Malik, the Soviet ambassador in Tokyo.
Wow.
In this letter, Bose expresses his desire to meet with Malik and discuss how the Soviet government could potentially support India's struggle for independence. Wow. A letter directly from Bose to the Soviets. That's a pretty strong indication that he was at least considering, aligning himself with them.
Absolutely. And it gets even more interesting. This letter was discovered in the KGB archives.
Oh, wow.
Lending it a level of authenticity that's hard to dismiss.
Right.
The book also presents, anecdotal evidence from individuals who claim to have encountered Bose.
Oh, what?
Or received information about his presence in Russia after 1945.
Wait, there are people who claim to have seen Bose in Russia after he supposedly died in the plane crash.
Right.
That sounds like something out of, a spy novel.
It does, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And while while these accounts might be difficult to verify definitively, they add another layer of intrigue to this already incredibly complex mystery. The authors even draw a parallel to the Raoul Wallenberg case.
Okay.
Wallenberg was a Swedish diplomat who disappeared in Soviet custody in 1945, and for years the Soviets denied any knowledge of his whereabouts.
Right.
But it was later revealed that he had died in a Soviet prison.
So they're suggesting that the Soviets might have done the same thing with Bose, kept him hidden and denied his presence for political reasons.
It's certainly a theory worth considering, especially given the similarities in how both cases were handled. The secrecy, the denials, and the lack of transparency.
It's mind-boggling to think that, a figure as prominent as Bose could just vanish.
Yeah.
And that multiple governments might have been complicit in covering it up. Did the Mukherjee Commission get any answers from the Russians?
Unfortunately, no. Despite repeated requests to access Soviet-era archives, the commission was stonewalled. The Russian government consistently denied having any information about Bose's presence in the Soviet Union.
Classic Cold War secrecy.
Right.
But if the Russians were uncooperative, what about the Indian government? Didn't they have kind of like a vested interest in uncovering the truth?
Well, the Indian government claims to have released all relevant files on the Bose case, however.
Okay.
The authors of the Bose Deception Declassified argue that crucial files, particularly those held by intelligence agencies,
Right.
both at the central and state levels, remain classified.
So potentially explosive information about Bose's fate could still be locked away in those secret files.
Possibly, yeah.
What about Bose's family? What's their take on all of this?
Well, that's a complex issue, and Chapter 11 kind of delves into the differing perspectives within the family. Some members, including Emily Schinkel, Bose's wife, never believed the plane crash story,
Really?
firmly maintaining that he was alive and potentially in Russia.
So even within his own family, there was this enduring belief that he might have survived.
Yes.
It adds a whole other dimension to this mystery, like a very human element amidst all the political intrigue.
Absolutely. And the authors emphasize that, the differing opinions within the family shouldn't be used to discredit the pursuit of truth. The search for answers should be based on evidence,
Right.
not personal beliefs or agendas.
It sounds like the Bose Deception Declassified isn't just like a historical account.
Yeah.
It's a call to action.
It is.
It's a challenge to kind of like question official narratives, demand transparency, and acknowledge that the past, especially when it comes to, iconic figures like Subhas Chandra Bose, is rarely as straightforward as it seems.
Exactly. The book reminds us that history is an ongoing dialogue, a continuous process of revision and resubmission.
I like that.
The quest for truth, especially when it comes to events shrouded in mystery and controversy, is a responsibility we all share.
We've only scratched the surface of this, captivating and complex mystery.
Yeah.
The Bose Deception Declassified is a must-read for anyone interested in history, politics, and the enduring power of unanswered questions. We encourage you to delve into this book, draw your own conclusions, and, let us know what you think happened to Subhas Chandra Bose.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Share your thoughts in the comments, keep the conversation going, and don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for more captivating deep dives like this one. And if you're enjoying the show and want to support us in creating more insightful content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Every contribution helps us continue this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and keep revising and resubmitting.